Benvenuti a tutti. Allora, sono Anna Giraldo e vi presenterò all'interno di questo Open Week delle lauree magistrali della Scuola di Scienze Umane e Sociali e del Patrimonio Culturale, vi presenterò la laurea magistrale in Local Development. Per prima cosa diamo un messaggio di introduzione della Presidente della Scuola di Scienze Umane, Professoressa Bertocci.
Bene. Care studentesse e cari studenti, in qualità di Presidente della Scuola di Scienze Umane, Sociali e del Patrimonio Culturale, sono lieta di incontrarvi e vi do il benvenuto alla prima iniziativa del progetto per la promozione delle lauree magistrali. La scuola ha il compito di favorire una migliore connessione e uno scambio più approfondito tra i diversi corsi di laurea che la compongono e l'offerta di corsi magistrali della scuola è straordinariamente ricca. 20 lauree magistrali, a testimonianza di un universo culturale, formativo e in prospettiva professionale, vasto, specialistico e al tempo stesso interdisciplinare. Un gruppo di lavoro interdipartimentale, presieduto dal professor Claudio Riva, ha lavorato intensamente per raggiungere il risultato che presentiamo. I due volti che per la scuola rappresentano il progetto sono invece Paola Stradi e Silvia Madoglio. A questo punto non mi resta che augurarvi buona esplorazione, sperando di potervi accogliere presto come studenti di uno dei nostri corsi di studio magistrale.
L'obiettivo dell'Open Week è di permettere a tutte le studentesse e a tutti gli studenti di Padova e non solo di conoscere l'ampia offerta delle lauree magistrali della scuola, presentate dai presidenti e coordinatori, docenti, testimoni del mondo delle professioni, laureati, tutor e rappresentanti degli studenti e delle studentesse. Il format che abbiamo costruito vi permetterà di conoscere nel dettaglio sia le lauree direttamente collegate alla triennale in cui vi siete laureati o vi state laureando, per dare così continuità al progetto formativo che avete iniziato con il primo ciclo di studi, sia quelle lauree magistrali non direttamente corrispondenti alla vostra triennale, ma che vi permetteranno di valorizzare le caratteristiche di interdisciplinarietà che caratterizzano i nostri studi.
In queste 2 ore verrete introdotti alla scoperta delle opportunità formative personali e professionali che un corso di laurea magistrale può consentirvi di raggiungere. Potrete andare nel dettaglio dei piani didattici, dei tempi e criteri di ammissione e anche conoscere un po' più a fondo gli ambiti in cui le figure formate potrebbero collocarsi nel mondo del lavoro.
Siamo certe che questa possa essere per voi un'occasione importante di ascolto e confronto, fondamentale ad acquisire consapevolezza, al fine di intraprendere il percorso a voi più consono, per dare continuità al vostro presente e delineare la forma del vostro futuro.
Benissimo, dopo questo video introduttivo della Presidente della scuola, ritorniamo alla nostra presentazione. And now I'm going to switch to English because our course is taught in English, and so our presentation will be in English as well. So I'm Anna Giraldo, I'm faculty and the master director of this degree courses, the degree courses in local development. I'm an applied statistician and I teach in local development since 10 years. With me in the Zoom, there is also Chiara Rabbiosi, that is faculty as well, and she's the Erasmus referent. And we have also David Celletti, that is a faculty as well. So I'm going to give you the agenda of this meeting. So we will have some introduction, some keywords of the course. Then we will talk about entry requirements, the program structure. Then we will show you some career opportunities, and then we're gonna introduce you our students. So what are the characteristics of our students? And then we will see our students in a short video. Then Chiara will show you the map. That is one of the activity what we have done at the beginning of last year. And then David will have a lecture. And then we will talk about internationalization and then media space. Perhaps media space will be after the map. So let's see, this is the list of people who are gonna teach in our course next year. And maybe you know some of them, maybe not. We are from different departments and from different fields. So let's go to the keywords of local development. So let's define local development in this way, in these two different ways. Local development is understood as a process of improvement of economic, social, and environmental situation of a given area based on the use of endogenous resources in order to improve the well-being and the quality of life of its population. On the upper side, you can see this picture in which we are the actors of local development. And so first of all, the community, then the local government and the private sector, and as well all the natural resources of our earth. And all together, all the actors will, with collective action, arrive to the goal of sustainable local development. So it's a process that is built together with all the actors involved. Let's have some explanation of what we do. So the course provides an advanced training level in the promotion of local development. In particular, it provides in-depth knowledge of the specific social, organizational, economic, territorial, and institutional forms and dynamics that characterize local development process in different contexts at a different level of development. So we're not concentrating in some area of the world, but we will see various examples of local development at different level of development, developing country or underdeveloped country. And so we put together different aspects, different topics, and the course is in fact multidisciplinary. So the curriculum context will cover integrated knowledge in different fields, so economics, sociology, statistics, historical, geographical, socio-pedagogical, and anthropological areas. So the particular things of local development master course is that we teach a lot of different subjects, but all the subjects are integrated in this integrated. Okay, so here are some keywords you may found in the courses of the 2 years of the master. And let's go to the entry requirements. So the entry requirements, so you have to add the GPA not less than 95 on 110. So it means that you have to graduate at least with 95 to enter in the Laurea Magistrale. And then the other requirement is the English level. So you need to have an English level B2, and this must certify by an international certificate like IELTS, TOEFL, etc. So it's not sufficient to have a certificate from the Centro Linguistico di Ateneo, for example. So you need to have an international certificate. If you add a bachelor, so a laurea triennale in completely in English, there is no need to provide our certificate. And the application for local development starts in July, this July, and till January 2022 if you graduate in full 2021. Okay, so let's see the program structure of the course. It's gonna be kind of boring, but I mean, to have an idea of what we do in the course is good to have this explanation. So we'll start in the first semester, first semester with these 3 courses. On one side, territorial strategic approaches for local development, that is taught by David Celetti, that is gonna show you something about this course. And then there is territorial governance and public policy. And then there is this big integrated course of geography for local development, theory and practice. And is composed by 2 different modules: geographical space, concept, tools and practice. And then the second one is GIS, mapping and analysis. So this is the first part of the first semester. Then you have to, there is another course you have to choose between 4 different courses. And why we put together this bunch of courses? Because we want to give you a common ground, so a common knowledge. So and this bunch of courses are made for build a common ground. In what sense? So our students usually comes from very different bachelor, from very different background, and so probably they have never done some economics, but economics is needed for the second part of the year, and so we provide the principle of economics for local development. If someone has never had some statistics, he has to take statistics for social science. If statistics and economics are given, are just in the background of the students, one can choose social research methodology or local democracy. So this courses serves as basis for what happened in the second semester. And in the second semester, we have these courses. So on one side, social dynamics and local development. Then we have this big quantitative course that is for project planning and quantitative methods, that is composed by statistical methods for local development and essential of project planning and evaluation. And then there is a course at choice between two courses of economics, circular economics and local development. And on the other side, you can choose technological innovation and urban development, theoretical approaches and case studies. And so then this is our first year, and in this first year we give you the basis of the tool you may need in your career as a local developer. The second year we have these 4 courses, and we call this semester Community Building for Local Development. And the courses are Space, Place and Mobility. That is a course that is taught by Chiara Rabbiosi, that is here in the Zoom. Then there is Space, Cities and Development. Then Transformative Learning, Participation and Group Dynamics, and then Microfinance for Local Development. Students may also choose to go in Erasmus in the first semester of the second year, and Chiara Rabbiosi will say something about the Erasmus destination we have in local development at the end of my presentation. Then to finish the program structure, you have an elective course of 9 credits that you may choose between all the courses of LAUREE Magistrale of the University of Padova. And then there is a course in a course of language. You can choose between academic speaking and writing and lingua italiana. I mean, you cannot choose really, because Italian people have to Italian students have to take academic speaking and writing, and foreign students have to take lingua italiana. To start, then to finish the course, there is this starting seminar, the Kickoff Seminar. I will say you something in a while. And then the internship, that is quite an important part of our career path. So at the end of the teaching, so in the second semester of the second year, students are asked to do a compulsory internship of 200 hours. It is an on-site traineeship. It could be in Italy or could be abroad. And this is in conjunction with agency, association, institution, companies, NGO, and the case study they perform during, so the things they do during the internship provide the starting point of the master thesis. That is our final step for graduation. Then along with all these compulsory activities, we have some extracurricular activities during all the courses. So we have a series of conferences, we have discussion, work group, we have some excursion, laboratory, and they change every year. And so we will see next year what we will do. Okay, so to start with, so the first step, the first meeting we have in the course is the Kickoff Seminar. The Kickoff Seminar is in September 2021, so at the beginning of the academic year, the week before the start of the lecture, and is a 4 days meeting in which we introduce all the activity of the course. And so we start with a K lecture, and then we will have a workshop. Usually is made by the same K speaker, and then hopefully we will have an excursion. Next year we didn't have it because of the pandemic. We are confident we will be able to have an excursion this year. And then we have this very nice activities that is Meet Your Future World. Meet Your Future is a word cafe, so is a meeting with some former students of local development, stakeholder, and they and in group you exchange ideas and career opportunity with all these people. Then we have some services and facility presentation, the presentation of the academic year, and then this year there will be the second alumni meeting. So we will put together people that graduate in the previous year to discuss about the local developer figure on the labor market, and to exchange ideas with the just enrolled students. Okay, so if you want to to know something else about local development, we have a syllabus that you can find in our Moodle page. In the syllabus, there are all the information about all the courses, the Erasmus destination, the professor, and the research interest of the professor that are then available for the thesis. And to have other information, you may want to write an email to our official email address, master.localdevelopment@unipd.it. Then, okay. The career opportunity. So our graduates have the ability to analyze the territorial context, recognize and promote the conditions that are favorable to local development. They may apply in full autonomy with managerial function and in complex and problematic contexts the various methodology for elaboration, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of projects for local development. And so graduates can be employed as professional in local development and cooperation in social and territorial contexts, in governmental and non-governmental organizations at the local, national, and international level, in trade and citizenship association, and also in enterprises. Let's have a look to our students. So our students, they grow in time. So local development started in 2010. And we had only 13 students, and this year instead we have almost more than 50 students. So we grow quite a lot. And in July 2019, we had the graduate number 100. And the students come from 50 different countries. At the very beginning, the percentage of foreign students were very small. But this year, we have almost half of the students are from abroad. And they come from all these nationality, from all these countries, from Afghanistan to Yemen, going through France, Italy, Mongolia, Nepal, etc. And let's listen to our students. Here we have a video on our students talking about the course. So I will stop this sharing and I will start another one. Just a minute.
I have chosen a local development master degree because I was interested in sustainable development goals from local perspectives.
It was the only course that I found in Europe that focused on local development.
Because we are experiencing a situation right now caused by the COVID-19, the quarantine that almost the whole world is living in, that we need to change the way in which we perceive development. We need to think about new ways of developing that go beyond the economic development.
Useful projects for any community you are working with, whether it's a local, rural community or in the urban areas.
Coming from a country that is still very much dealing with social, political, and economic problems, I realized that I wanted to deal with these issues on a local level and somehow have an impact on my own community.
Because I didn't want to study the Western globalized concept of development. I wanted to study development from a local perspective, from people empowerment and participatory approach. And local development master's degree definitely gave me all of that.
And the course was a very enriching experience for me.
Mainly because of its interdisciplinary approach.
Because I was looking for a master course more practical, which is not common in Italy at all.
Framework of local development, I studied so many different classes from different faculties such as economic, social, environmental, statistics. So it's basically all pillars of sustainable development.
Given me all the background and the tools I needed to choose what I want to do in my academic career.
It has provided me the skills and tools in how to analyze a territory under a social, cultural, political, and economic perspective to be able to enhance territories to their full potential from a bottom-up approach for a sustainable outcome.
It was taught in English, gives you the opportunity to look for international career opportunities later.
I would like to work as a future local developer back in Afghanistan.
I would like to work with government institutions or NGOs.
That I will work with a local NGO that deals with these mentioned problems in a very pragmatic way.
A deeper insight and a more sensitive cultural insight of what your problem, of what are the needs of the community you are working with.
And it's not going to end with the graduation, believe me.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so just to finish my presentation, I think that I'm almost done. Let me see. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce you Chiara Rabbiosi, that is teaching in our course as well, and she made this nice map and she gonna talk about it.
All right, so welcome everybody that's here, benvenuti a tutte, visto che ho visto che online ci sono una predominanza di future, speriamo, studentesse di local development, che come le ragazze che avete visto nel video appunto sono piuttosto schierate dal punto di vista del genere. I will also switch to English in a second, but consider that I saw plenty of Italian names online. I thought that it was nice to also give welcome in Italian as well. So my name is Chiara Rabbioli. I am a professor here in local development, and I teach space, place, and mobility in the second year. This means that either we meet in class in the second year, or we don't meet in class, but as Professor Giraldo was announcing, I'm in charge of the Erasmus exchanges for local development, so we might meet, by the way, in another way. But above all, we meet in the Kickoff Seminar. And the Kickoff Seminar is a 2 to 3 days event that marks the starting point of our path together, and it's January and September. And this is a chance for you to meet the faculties, to know more about the services of the University of Padua in case you have not studied there, but also to exchange with other students. However, as you know, the past year has been quite a disruptive year, and we haven't really been able to meet in person. So as part of the Kickoff Seminar of Local Development, we decided to start interacting with students at distance, and what we came out with was a sort of virtual class that was visualized through a map. And in a minute, I will show you how this class looks like. Okay, so this is an interactive map that we built together for the Kickoff Seminar of Local Development last year. And basically what you visualize on this Google map is where your future colleagues, or let's say the class of last year, come from. And as Professor Giraldo has shown graphs pinpointing for the diverse nationalities of students composing the local development studentship, and also you have seen, you have listened to students from local development from a variety of parts of the world. You can also visualize them on this map. But what this map is also about is a starting point that we ask students to elaborate on what local development is for them. And this is also a question that I would like to ask you since you're here. Maybe we don't have time to, but start thinking. So what we asked our future students last year to ask was to tell us what local development was for them. And now I focus more on the Italian students, just because I see that some of them come, or most of them come from Italy. So as you will see here, we have different dots. And if I click on one of them, I have the words of Rachele. And Rachele uploaded a picture of what she sees out of her window, and then quickly introduces her, and then gives a definition of what local development is for her. So my idea of local development, Rachele says, has grown with the idea of how I can turn a dying city, and she comes from Livorno, into a modern and rich one, at least under a tourist perspective, considering that tourism should be one of the main drivers of the Italian economics. This proposal started during the first 3 years of university and explains why I decided to enroll in a local development master course, the best means to deepen my studies. And moving on, and during the Kickoff Seminar, actually, we asked students to open up their microphone in a Zoom meeting in order to know each other. But the result of these exercises is also for us, both as professor, but I think also for students, a way to mark how their initial idea of a local, what was their or yours initial idea of local development, and how it evolves during the path we take together. Just another experience, it is the one of Minu, who originally was an urban planner. Again, Professor Giraldo stressed how local development is an interdisciplinary course, and this is also reflected on the background of students who enroll in the first year. And in this long description, she described the neighborhoods where she lives, and also she describes how the fact of having grown up in the neighborhood in Tuzla, who is a neighborhood of Istanbul, has forged her idea of what local development is. So I can share with you the link to this map, and you can in the future spend some time in seeing and in moving through the map to have an idea of the kind of students you would probably meet and you would probably be part of, and also have starting thinking in terms of local development and how this can be defined also according to your own experience. So what I will do now, I will share the link to this map in the chat, and if you feel like, you can save it and you can scroll to the chat for your pleasure and for understanding a bit more of the kind of really studentship you will meet. And this, I think it's a really important part of the experience of being a student of local development, being in a really multicultural kind of context, which also forces us to think that local development cannot just be one, but adapts to the single places and to the single or plural local communities we have or we deal with as practitioners, for instance. The last thing I will say before we stop for a first round of questions is that I have already sent in the chat a variety of links to websites where we find information of our master course. Another very important source is our media space channel, which is open to everybody. That is to say, not just to UniPD students, as some of you are, but also to a larger group. And now I will share it also in the chat. And I will also show it through my screen. All right. Okay, so this is another really, I truly think, inspiring platform I really invite you to explore. This is our media space channel. And here you will find a variety of videos concerned with things we do concretely in local development master course. You will find the videos that Professor Giraldo has just shown you with students of the past, sharing their motivations and why they have enrolled in this class, and also what they have found in the Master in Local Development. But you will also find a list of short videos that each of us as professors have shot, introducing some parts, at least, of their course units. So, as I was saying, I teach a class called Space, Place, and Mobility, which is generally taught in the first semester of the second year. And here you might find a video in which I introduce, in form of a video, what this class is about and how it relates with local development. And you will find this more or less for any single teacher. Not any of us, but most of us. And you will also find the recordings of the seminars of the master course in local development. This year, we have been able to provide really quite a huge amount of seminars held by practitioners or by colleagues, scholars that have worked on specific researches, on specific issues that somehow help you to understand how the expertise that you are provided with can be turned into research or practical application. And you will also find a short video of a field trip that has been done in the Po Delta in the past. As you know, as you may imagine, this year, the last 12 months have been very hard for doing field trips, but we really look forward to go back to the field with you. And we'll also find some snapshots of narratives from colleagues, students' colleagues, I mean, and how it has been to be an Erasmus for them in the past year. I think I can conclude at the moment, and we have spoken already a bit, so maybe it's time for a first round of questions in case you have, and then we have other materials to share with you, other details to give you, ranging from a glimpse of a lecture from my colleague David Celetti to telling you more in terms of Erasmus exchanges and internships. So I shut up now, but I do ask you students online if you have questions to pose already now. And if I can also if I could also ask, it would be, I think, very nice for us to see your faces through the screen, not just the name. Consider that it's far easier to talk with someone that can show us his face or her face. If you can, at least. So is there any question? I do ask Agnese, Lisa, Rachele, Simona, Sofia, or Vera. If you're still there, do you have any question or any curiosity or anything else? So it seems there is. Okay.
Moment, thank you.
Okay, but thank you for allowing us to hear your voices. It's nice to feel that we are in front of someone. Thank you very much for this. I think it's Vera. Okay, so if you don't have any other, if you have no question at the moment, we can go on with our presentation.
Chiara, probably they are, I mean, quite embarrassed to talk in English. I mean, question could be in Italian. I mean,
indeed,
no problem.
Indeed. In ogni modo, abbiamo pensato di fare un primo giro di domande ora, ma daremo spazio alle domande anche prima di concludere questo Zoom. Quindi se ci sono delle domande da fare subito, siamo molto contenti di risponderci ora. In alternativa potete pure pensarci e porle più tardi.
Chiara, I think we can give... Oh, Simona?
Buongiorno, mi sentite?
Molto bene.
Ok, bene. Non so se allora funziona la telecamera, vabbè, in caso... no, volevo solo ringraziarvi, io per ora non ho domande, se riesco poi ad attivare la telecamera mi attivo anche così mi vedete in faccia, ma volevo solo ringraziarvi per questa presentazione e poi se dovesse venirmi qualche domanda la tengo per la fine, ma volevo solo far sentire che c'è una voce.
Grazie mille Simona.
Prego.
Benissimo, direi allora che passiamo a David. David che insegna Territorial Strategical Approach for Local Development and is going to give us an overview of the course.
Okay, so I think you see the screen. So good morning to everybody. Of course, the presentation will be in English. My name, as Anna said, is David Celetti. I teach in this master course already many years. I had by chance, so that the first years I taught here was 2006. So I have quite a long experience. We will have today a little talk. It's not a lecture and not so exactly the presentation of the course and its details, but just some reflections and thoughts about what development, economic development, local development is, which are at the core, of course, of my course and of the master's approach to development. So development, let's think about development. So development as a core, its core meaning is a biological one. So we think when we talk about development, we think about, first of all, about nature. So nature is developing. Any living entity, living being has a development. So there is behind this idea, the idea of successive stages that allows any organism to reach a certain point, its full development, so its full genetic potential, which is followed, and this is quite an interesting aspect of development, which is followed by decline. This is the rule of life. So this second aspect, we will not find, this is why I stress it, we will not find in the economic social idea of development, which has somehow erased the bad side or the second part of development in nature. So what we can say about development, so it's an intrinsic aspect of life. You cannot have any kind of life without development. You have some kind of cycle in it, so growing, and then somehow some statistic, and then you have decline. So development and decline are strictly associated concepts: birth and maturity, old age and death. And you see in this little picture I put in the right side of the slide, so the 3 ages of the man. So this is development in nature, and this is in fact the core idea behind the development world. When we shift social sciences, so we leave nature and we shift to social sciences, we see some differences in the word development. In fact, in social and economic studies, the word indicates process of gradual positive social and economic change. Why positive? Because it's a development towards higher conditions, higher stages. That might be political, economic, cultural. In any case, a community that is developing, roughly saying, is gradually living better and better. So you have here an economic idea. So development has to be somehow measured, and not all, but most measures are economic ones. Not only, but economic is a core aspect, because economic fuels development. Without economic development, it's very hard in the long term to have social development in terms of population, so demographic development, cultural, standard of living, and so on. This is, in fact, a widespread and core notion of development. At the same time, you have development and underdevelopment together. You can't, in fact, the notion of development entails in social sciences also the notion of less developed, uneven, or underdeveloped, uneven development between and among communities. You will always find, and if you look at the history of the world, some communities that were more developed than others. So the two aspects, once again, stick together. And then this is a more modern concept and approach. You have also the idea of development path. So to develop, you have to go through certain ways and certain path. You have right mothers and less right mothers, or even bad mothers. This is idea. It's very widespread in the Western world, at least, and has been launched many years ago by Rostov when he wrote a famous and important, because it was a very influential book, The Stages of Economic Growth, One Best Way and One Best Path to Reach, in that case, Western affluence. But this gives the idea that is still now very widespread, as I said, that to reach development, you have to follow certain, in this case, economic models, economic process. But at the same time, if you think about this concept of development social sciences, you also find that is a very broad meaning. And as is very broad meaning, this meaning is also a little bit blurred in its significance. It makes it a generic word development. And if you should look for a concrete, clear, and at the same time universal definition of development, you would have a lot of difficulties. It's very interesting aspect, and here the reference to the word also very influential of Gilbert Rist is somehow necessary. The history of development goes namely about this problem. What is development and how can we define development? Well, how can we define development? How can we see what development is? You have a lot of indicators, a lot of indexes, a lot of photographs, a lot of pictures. I put some examples here. You can divide developed and less developed countries by GDP or GDP per capita, as you see in the first picture on the left side of our screen. And you will have a very important differentiation, as you see the areas in red or dark red, less developed, and the area in green, light green, the most developed of the world. So very important differences. So GDP and GDP per capita, the second picture of the screen. Of course, this is a very rough indicator of development, because behind GDP per capita you have a lot of things. But as we said, economics necessary, or is still considered necessary, to fuel some kind of even social, cultural, and demographic development. So take into consideration is important. Here you have other very interesting description of development in a comparative way, in a comparative approach, approaching population and GDP. In the figures you see in the first one, the countries, the biggest population. And in the second one, you see the distribution of wealth, of GDP. The biggest the country, the biggest its GDP. So you see that between the two figures in the two pictures, you have quite striking differences in North America and Canada, for example, whereas other countries are more homogeneous, like China, or to some extent, even Western Europe. Big contrast you have, however, with Africa, so a picture of development. Other more interesting indexes are the human index that focus, and you see in the first picture, the darkest, the highest this human index is, that it focuses on social aspects, so health, care, education, life expectancies, as well as GDP, because also GDP is important and you can forget it. And you see a quite different picture of the world if comparing to those that represented rough GDP or Gini indexes. So how wealth is distributed within a country. So this is also a very important. And here you find quite interesting things, that poor countries have a very high Gini index, so tend to orange and red ones, which means that you have not only poor conditions, but a very concentration, very high concentration of wealth. So wealth is not evenly distributed, whereas other countries, or many countries, are just in between. This is also so why we have wealth differences, not only among countries, but within the same countries. A very important wealth differences. Gini index is above 40%. Indicates that wealth is very unevenly distributed within the country, so very important social differences. So why? All those aspects you have seen, you can see in a descriptive way, but if you think about it a little bit, there are so all those aspects are also clear questions that development studies try to answer. So why we have different development results, why we have different living conditions, why we have different social conditions in countries, why we have different distribution of wealth among countries. And then to conclude, you can even turn to IMF, which very roughly classified developed countries in gray. This is 2017, but nothing has currently changed. Developing in green and industrialized, newly industrialized in blue countries. This is also a picture of development. So to conclude this part, what is development? We have to answer the question, but it is clear that development transformed the world in many ways all through the centuries, creating, reaching good results that we have under our eyes, but also creating a lot of problems. And maybe the synthesis of these problems that we have to analyze and try to solve is the word inequality, inequality among countries, among individuals, among social classes. And to analyze this aspect, we have to try to grasp the causes, consequences, and eventually new path to reach this problem if we do consider it. So this brings us to, in fact, the end of my little presentation. So development is tightly linked to history. Development has to be seen in light, as I put here, of history through a diachronic approach to understand it, because it's a process. So you can't see and you can't focus on the end results because you can't understand why you reached, namely, these results in terms, of course, of achievements and problems. And here, this little graphic, which is a very famous one, and I put here a reference to a very influential work of Angus Maddison, try to answer to this, namely to this question. This is an example. So you see here GDP per capita in Western Europe and China, and you see the first part of this relation up to 1950, when the two GDP per capita is very interesting, in fact, index diverged. This is the great divergence. And then from the early 1950s onwards started converging. So this is an example of development path. Why this happened, what happened in 1950 in China, what happened in 1950, 16, 17 in Europe, and why this divergence started diminishing up to a point when this is, of course, the future and we don't know it. The two GDPs per capita won't have any difference anymore, which means that, roughly speaking, we will have the same standard of living in the two areas. But this is an example of our main problem. Why this happened, what are the causes, what are the consequences, and how we can analyze it. This is another example just to make you see why history is important, why it is important to look at development from a diachronic perspective. This is GDP per capita in the Soviet Russia and the Russian Empire, then in the Soviet Union compared, and then in so-called New Russia compared to Western European level. And you see here, once again, something interesting, that we had another great divergence from the early 17th century up until 1928. And then we had a very important and rapid convergence, kind of stagnation, and a new divergence. So why this happened? So this is somehow one of the core aspects of our course. Why, in light of history, we had different social models and practices, how they worked, and which were the results of the social model and practices on economic development, widely speaking. So with an emphasis on economic and human development, the long-term consequences of this different development pact the intellectual, social, and political backgrounds of these different approaches in history and in space to the development problem. And we will, of course, come to the present. So the new theory, the new models that can be nowadays thought and maybe experienced. There is another important aspect, and go towards conclusion, which is local. So in the master and in my course name, there is this word local. Local because, in fact, we focus on territory and communities. Development is a broad concept, as we have seen. You can look at it from a world perspective, but you shouldn't, and we shouldn't, and we will not forget that development is something that concretely, that is concretely embedded in territories, in communities. The word local is also quite abstract per se, but in any case, it indicates that emphasis is put on community, on local and regional development. It stresses how in this territory you find the material and immaterial assets on which development can build. So the resources, but also the culture, the history, the social networks and the social organization, the social values, the social capitals in terms of know-how, potentialities, abilities that are extremely important and on which we build development. It also highlights the importance of territory as a button-up, informal, tailored approach to development. It also highlights that we shouldn't and we will not have a monolithic approach to development. So one best way, the one best way of Rostov, but we should have a tailored, as put it, approach to development. Models that function in one space will not necessarily function in another. Territory, therefore, matters. Local development is connected and strictly linked with the concept of territory as a complex unity of material and immaterial assets, as we said, within some kind of geographical borders on which you build development. Put reference, and you can look at it. The internet is free, to a very interesting book that analyzes the importance of territory from the point of view of their complexity. Complexity is an asset to foster and in which to build development. So territory, local development, territory matters. Territory is a very complex concept on which you find assets on which you will build and you can build development. So relevance of local identity and context, you have to understand it. You have to understand the territory and in which are, of course, the people you are working in. History and geography count, and territory is a leverage on which build development from any point of view. I conclude stressing that local and global perspective, as you have seen in these slides, are not two separate concepts. They cannot be separate, but they have to build some kind of dialogue together. You have to understand local communities, local culture, regional, national cultures, and you have us to understand that, especially nowadays in this, in fact, still globalized world, these two aspects have to build a fruitful dialogue together. It's impossible to have other ideas. So what specific territories to play limiting space frames, but on the contrary, it implies to enlarge dialogue between those two territorial aspects. I put one very interesting example here, and in the left side of the slides, you see a map of slow food. So slow food is a very territorial embedded organization, which has a very important attention to territory, understanding of territories, of tradition, of cultures, but it's also a global organization. You can find slow food in any country of the world, which is not, of course, citing slow food for any other reason. That is a very clear and well-known example. I put a reference to a work I've published a couple of years ago on small artisans of a very specific place in the Vicenza provinces that, even using modern technology and modern possibilities, are expanding and working in very distant market, engaging and using territory in their tradition to engage a fruitful dialogue and links with many other territories. So coming to the end, the last two slides about the course. The course has a chronologic approach, so development in light of history based on the different and the main approaches to development, economic and social system, and therefore approaches to development that have characterized global development in the last at least 6-7 centuries. So, and you have here some examples, and I stress we will have Western and non-Western one, because development is global, so a chronological approach. And within this chronological approach, we will have also some thematic approach, thematic that goes through the centuries, that are not limited to certain areas, but that are very important to understand what development is and how development is created, influenced. And here you have some examples. So the definition of development, as we have seen, is very important. War and the ideology, social inequality, how social inequality dialogue with development, colonialism and imperialism. So the political use of political assets to enlarge power, influence, and wealth. Currencies are extremely important to transfer wealth in time and space. That also can be used to enhance one's nation power, and then resilience as a factor that gives stability. So in conclusion, so thank you of course, for your attention. I put here the link to the media space where there is the presentation. You can find the presentation of my courses, about short 7 minutes, and it gives insights. It will give you insights if you will see it and watch it. It will give you insights on the different topics that will be touched and tackled in my course. So thank you very much for your attention. Grazie per la vostra attenzione. And of course, if you have any questions, se avete qualsiasi domanda, penso che abbiamo lo spazio perché le possiate fare.